The transport shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, and every major news network across 3 continents tracked its path. Queen Amara of the Korvathian Empire had come to claim what the treaty promised: a human consort. The most powerful woman in known space, ruler of 200 worlds, commander of fleets that made stars tremble, she could have anyone. The question burning through humanity was simple. Who would she choose? Cameras followed her through the reception hall in Geneva, where Earth's finest had gathered. Decorated generals stood at attention, their chests heavy with medals. Renowned diplomats smiled with practiced charm. Scientists who had revolutionized fields waited with barely concealed hope. Amara moved past them all, her crimson scales catching the light, her golden eyes scanning faces with an intensity that made even the bravest men look away. She stopped in front of a man standing near the back. He wore a simple gray suit that fit poorly across his shoulders. His brown hair needed cutting. He held a small potted plant in his hands, something with delicate white flowers that seemed out of place in the formal setting. "Your name," Amara said. Her voice carried the harmonic undertones of her species, making each word resonate. "Ethan Cole, Your Majesty." He met her eyes without flinching, but there was no challenge in his gaze, just calm curiosity. "What do you do, Ethan Cole?" "I study plants, ecosystems, how things grow in difficult conditions." He glanced down at the flower in his hands. "This is alpine forget-me-not. Thrives in places where nothing else can survive." Amara tilted her head, her crest flaring slightly. Behind her, her advisors shifted uncomfortably. One leaned close to whisper, but she raised a clawed hand for silence. "Why are you here?" "They asked me to come. Said it was important for diplomatic relations." He smiled. "Just a little. I think they needed to fill the room. The queen of the Korvathian Empire, whose word was law across 100 star systems, whose fleets had crushed the Vec rebellion and forced the throne worlds to kneel, made her decision in that moment. You will come with me." The room erupted. Generals protested. Diplomats stammered objections. The Secretary General of Earth rushed forward, his face pale. "Your Majesty, surely there has been some mistake. Mr. Cole is, well, he's just a botanist, a researcher. No military experience, no political background, no, I have made my choice." Amara's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Ethan Cole will return with me to Korvath Prime. The treaty is fulfilled." She turned to Ethan, who still held his plant with careful hands. "You have 1 hour to gather what you need. We depart before sunset." He nodded slowly. "Can I bring seeds?" For the first time since landing on Earth, Amara smiled. "Bring whatever you wish." The galaxy watched the footage with confusion that quickly turned to mockery. On Korvath Prime, the noble houses gathered in their estates and laughed at the Queen's choice. On the trading stations that orbited neutral stars, species from a dozen worlds shared the same joke. The mighty Korvathian Empire, brought low by a human who grew flowers. The journey to Korvath Prime took 6 days through the warplanes. Ethan spent most of that time in his assigned quarters, studying data files about Korvathian culture and biology. Amara visited on the 3rd day, finding him surrounded by holographic displays showing molecular structures. "You prepare," she observed. "Trying to." He gestured at the floating images. "Your people's biochemistry is fascinating. The way your scales regulate temperature, how your respiratory system processes different atmospheric compositions. It's elegant. Most humans find us frightening. Most humans haven't spent years studying how life adapts to impossible circumstances." He pulled up a new display, this one showing genetic sequences. "Your people evolved on a world with extreme seasonal variations. Your bodies are built for survival. That's not frightening. That's remarkable." Amara moved closer, studying the data with interest. "You see patterns. Everything is patterns if you know how to look." He pointed to a specific sequence. This is similar to a drought resistance gene in Earth cacti. Completely different evolutionary path, same solution to the same problem." They talked until the ship's night cycle began, about evolution and adaptation, about the strange parallels between species that had never met until humanity reached the stars. When Amara finally left, her advisors were waiting in the corridor. "He is unsuitable," her chief counselor said. "The noble houses are already plotting. They see weakness." "Let them plot," Amara said. "They see what they expect to see. They do not see what I see." Korvath Prime glittered beneath them as the transport descended. Cities of crystal and steel stretched across continents. The royal palace stood at the heart of the capital, a structure so massive it had its own weather patterns. Ethan pressed his face to the viewport, watching with open wonder. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "It is home." Amara stood beside him, "though I suspect it will feel less welcoming than it looks." She was right. The welcome ceremony was cold and formal. Noble houses sent their representatives, each one studying Ethan with barely concealed contempt. He wore the formal robes they had provided, looking uncomfortable but dignified. When introduced, he bowed with the proper depth and duration, his movements careful and precise. Lord Vektash of House Crimson spoke first, his scales dark with age and battle scars. "So this is the human the Queen chose. Tell me, small one, what battles have you won? What enemies have you crushed?" "None, my lord," Ethan said simply. "What fleets have you commanded? What worlds have you conquered?" "None, my lord." Vektash's laugh was harsh. "Then what possible use are you?" Ethan met his eyes steadily. "I couldn't say, my lord. Perhaps the Queen sees something others don't." The banquet that followed was a test, and everyone knew it. Ethan sat at Amara's right hand while noble houses watched his every move. The food was exotic, prepared from creatures found across the Empire. He ate carefully, tasting small portions, his expression thoughtful. "The human is afraid of his meal," someone whispered, loud enough to carry. Ethan ignored the comment, but his eyes kept moving across the table, studying the arrangements, the servers, the way certain dishes were presented. He leaned close to Amara. "Don't drink the wine." She paused, her glass halfway to her lips. "Explain." "The crystalline formation on the rim, it's not condensation. I've been watching the servers. Your glass was prepared differently from the others." His voice was low, urgent. "On Earth, certain plants produce similar crystalline toxins. They're nearly invisible, tasteless, and deadly to reptilian metabolisms." Amara set the glass down slowly. She gestured and her personal guards moved instantly. They seized the nearest server, who tried to flee. Within minutes, 3 members of House Obsidian were in chains, and chemical analysis confirmed what Ethan had suspected. The poison would have killed Amara within hours. Lord Vektash approached Ethan later, his posture different now, respectful. "You saved the Queen's life with your knowledge of plants." "I noticed a pattern that didn't fit," Ethan said. "Someone went to a lot of trouble to make that poison look natural. But natural processes don't work that precisely. A galaxy calls you weak. They do not understand. Most people only see what they expect to see." Ethan looked across the hall to where Amara was interrogating the conspirators. "The Queen sees differently." News of the assassination attempt spread through the Empire within hours. The noble houses who had mocked the human choice fell silent. But not everyone was impressed. On the outer worlds, dissent grew. Why should the Korvathian Empire, mighty and feared, follow a queen who surrounded herself with soft humans? Why should they bow to weakness? 3 houses formally challenged Amara's rule. The Pact of Steel, they called themselves. They controlled mining operations on 15 worlds and had significant military resources. They demanded the Queen prove her fitness to lead or step down. The Royal Council convened in the war room. Holographic displays showed fleet positions and resource allocations. Military commanders argued for immediate action. "We crush them now," General Thrace insisted. "Show of force. Remind them why they fear the throne." "That will push neutral houses to their side," another commander countered. "They will claim we are tyrants." The argument went in circles. Amara listened, her claws tapping against the table. Finally, she looked at Ethan, who had been sitting quietly in the corner watching the displays. "You have been silent, consort. What do you think?" Every eye in the room turned to him. The military commanders looked skeptical. The political advisors looked curious. Ethan stood and approached the main display. "On Earth, we had similar problems. Factions fighting for power, each one ready to burn everything down to win." He manipulated the display, bringing up detailed information on the 3 rebel houses. But force isn't the only kind of strength. Sometimes the strongest move is the one your enemy doesn't expect. Speak clearly, Vektash said, though his tone was no longer dismissive. These 3 houses are united by one thing: opposition to the Queen. But they don't actually agree on much else. House Iron wants mining rights. House Blade wants military glory. House Shadow wants political influence. Ethan highlighted each house's territorial holdings. They're together because they think they're stronger that way. What if we show them they're not? Over the next 3 days, Amara followed Ethan's advice with precision. She offered House Iron exclusive mining contracts on 2 resource-rich moons, contracts they had been seeking for years. She gave House Blade command of the border fleet facing the Vec territories, a position of honor they craved. To House Shadow, she offered seats on the Economic Council and control of trade negotiations with the Outer Rim. Each offer was private. Each offer was exactly what that house wanted most. And each offer came with one condition: renounce the Pact of Steel. House Iron broke first. Their mining operations depended on royal support, and the offered moons were too valuable to refuse. House Shadow followed within hours, their political ambitions outweighing their revolutionary fervor. House Blade held out for 2 more days before accepting the fleet command. The Pact of Steel collapsed without a single shot fired. The galaxy watched in amazement as the human strategy dismantled a rebellion through negotiation instead of force. You divided them, Amara said, studying the reports from her throne. I showed them they were already divided, Ethan corrected. They just needed the right incentive to remember it. But peace never lasts long in a galaxy built on conquest and power. 6 weeks after the Pact's collapse, the Zhen Collective struck. They came through the warp lanes in massive numbers, their fleet darkening the space around 3 Korvathian border worlds. Their message was simple and broadcast across all frequencies. Queen Amara had grown weak, corrupted by human influence. The Korvathian Empire was ripe for conquest. The Zhen had been planning this for years, waiting for the right moment. The human consort, the peaceful resolution of the Pact, these were signs of weakness they could exploit. Their fleet was 3 times larger than the Korvathian border defenses. Military analysts across the Empire calculated the odds and found them grim. Amara Jaji her war council immediately. The room filled with her finest military minds, each one shouting over the others. The consensus was clear. Pull back to defendable positions, consolidate forces, prepare for a long war of attrition. We cannot win a direct confrontation, Admiral Korath said, her tactical display showing the Zhen fleet movements. They outnumber us significantly. We must turtle up, make them pay for every world they take, and hope they overextend. That strategy means abandoning 15 million Korvathians to Zhen occupation, Vektash growled. Unacceptable. The alternative is losing our main fleet in a battle we cannot win. Ethan watched the arguing commanders, his expression thoughtful. He pulled up historical data on the Zhen Collective, studying their previous campaigns. Amara noticed. You see something? Maybe. He highlighted several battles. The Zhen always fight the same way. Overwhelming force, direct assault, crush the enemy through superior numbers. It's effective, but it's predictable. Predictable how? Admiral Korath demanded. They expect resistance to meet them head-on. When it does, they apply more force until resistance breaks. It's a formula. Ethan manipulated the display, showing theoretical fleet movements. What if we don't do what they expect? Retreat is what they expect, someone said. Not retreat, misdirection. Ethan's fingers danced across the controls. On Earth, we had a military leader named Sun Tzu. He said the greatest victory is the battle not fought. But when battle is necessary, make the enemy think they're winning right up until they've already lost. He outlined his plan. It was insane. It violated every principle of Korvathian military doctrine. It relied on deception, patience, and the Zhen doing exactly what their nature compelled them to do. General Thrace shook his head. This is madness. You ask us to abandon territory, scatter our forces, and let the enemy think they're winning. What if they don't follow the pattern? What if they adapt? Then we lose, Ethan said simply. But if we fight them directly, we lose anyway. This way, we at least have a chance. Amara stood, her full height imposing even among her own people. "We follow the humans' plan. Prepare the fleet." The orders went out within hours. Korvathian forces on the border worlds began a chaotic retreat. Ships fled in disorder, some damaged, broadcasting distress signals. Civilian populations evacuated in panic. Supply depots were abandoned with minimal resistance. To any observer, it looked like complete collapse. The Zhen took the bait. Their fleet surged forward, claiming world after world with minimal casualties. Their commanders broadcast victory messages, declaring the Korvathian Empire broken. They pushed deeper into Imperial space, their supply lines stretching longer with each conquest. Ethan spent 18 hours a day in the command center tracking every Zhen movement. He barely slept, surviving on stimulants and focus. Amara often found him staring at the tactical displays, his eyes bloodshot, his hands trembling slightly. "You should rest," she said during one such visit. "Can't. Not yet." He pointed to a cluster of Zhen ships. "They're almost where we need them. Another 2 days, maybe 3. And if you collapse before then someone else will have to finish this." He managed a tired smile. "But I'd rather see it through." The Zhen had taken 20 worlds in 10 days. Their fleet was spread across a vast front, claiming territory faster than they could secure it. Their supply convoys traveled through Korvathian space with minimal escort, confident in their dominance. They were winning so thoroughly that they stopped being careful. That's when Ethan gave the signal. Korvathian forces that had seemed scattered and broken suddenly attacked with perfect coordination. The abandoned supply depots revealed themselves as traps, their empty warehouses hiding bomb arrays that detonated as Zhen convoys passed. The civilian evacuation ships that had fled in panic reversed course, revealing themselves as disguised warships that struck at overextended Zhen positions. But the masterstroke came at the Zhen fleet's center of operations. While they had pushed deep into Korvathian territory, Amara had quietly moved her main battle fleet through alternate warplanes. They emerged behind the Zhen command ships, cutting off their retreat and destroying their supply network in a single devastating strike. The Zhen fleet, spread across 20 worlds and confident in their victory, suddenly found themselves isolated, surrounded, and cut off from resupply. Korvathian forces pressed in from all sides. Individual Zhen battle groups tried to fight their way out, but coordinated they were not. The mighty invasion force that had seemed unstoppable 10 days ago fragmented and fell within 72 hours. The victory was absolute. The Zhen Collective sued for peace, offering reparations and territory. But more importantly, they offered respect. The galaxy had watched the entire campaign. They had seen the Korvathian Empire nearly broken, only to rise up and destroy an enemy 3 times their size through strategy instead of raw strength. And they knew who had orchestrated it. The celebration on Korvath Prime lasted 3 days. Noble houses that had once mocked the human consort now sought his counsel. Other species, watching from across the galaxy, began reaching out to Earth asking for advisors and strategists. Humanity, once seen as the newcomers to galactic affairs, suddenly found themselves in demand. Ethan avoided most of the parties. Amara found him in the palace gardens, tending to a small plot where he had planted seeds from Earth. The alpine forget-me-nots were blooming, their small white flowers defiant against Korvath Prime's purple sky. "They want to build statues of you," Amara said, sitting beside him. "That would be weird." He brushed soil from his hands. "I just did what made sense. You did what no one else saw. You turned certain defeat into absolute victory. We turned it into victory. I had the idea. You had the courage to trust it." He looked at her. "This queen who ruled worlds and commanded fleets. That takes more strength than anything I did." Amara's crest flared, a sign of deep emotion among her people. "When I came to Earth, I was looking for strength. But everyone showed me the obvious kind. Muscles and medals and loud voices." She touched one of the small flowers. "You showed me that strength can be quiet, that power can be patient, that the mightiest weapon is sometimes the one no one sees coming." "My grandmother used to say that empty vessels make the most noise," Ethan said. "The ones who really know things don't need to shout about it. The galaxy is learning that lesson now." Amara stood, offering her clawed hand. "Come." The noble houses are gathering. They wish to formally recognize you as Prince Consort with full authority. Ethan took her hand and let her pull him up, but he hesitated. I don't need titles. I know. That is why you deserve them. The ceremony was grand and formal, witnessed by representatives from 40 species. Ethan stood beside Amara's throne, uncomfortable in his formal robes, but steady. When Lord Vektash placed the crown on his head, the old warrior spoke words that would be repeated across the empire for generations. We sought a warrior and received a gardener. We expected thunder and received silence. We thought the queen had chosen weakness, but she showed us we had forgotten what true strength looks like. Later, much later, when the ceremonies had ended and the guests had departed, Ethan and Amara stood on the palace balcony looking out over the capital city. Lights stretched to every horizon. Millions of beings living their lives under the protection of a throne that had just proven it could not be shaken. Do you miss Earth? Amara asked. Sometimes. The mountains. The quiet.
Ethan smiled. But I'm building something new here.
Earth plants growing in alien soil, 2 species learning from each other, that's worth staying for. The other species are calling it the human revolution. They say we have ushered in a new era of galactic politics. They're calling it the wrong thing then. It's not about humans or Korvathians. It's about understanding that there are many kinds of strength, many ways to solve problems. He gestured at the city below. Some problems need warriors, some need diplomats, some need people who notice patterns, others miss. Amara leaned against him, a gesture of intimacy rare among her people. The galaxy remembers your name now, Ethan Cole. Maybe, but I think they'll remember yours longer, Queen Amara, the ruler who was strong enough to choose differently. Below them, the city glowed. Above them, stars wheeled in their courses, indifferent to the small beings who had just changed the shape of galactic power. But on Korvath Prime, in the gardens where earth flowers bloomed, a quiet human and the queen who chose him had proven that sometimes the softest voice carries the furthest. The galaxy had learned to listen, and it would never forget.